Hello and welcome back to the Bald Book Geek. My name is Will. This episode we are doing something a little different. This is Roswell High Revisited. So first things first, I'm going to do this video in the order of stuff. So I'm going to talk about the books, the original 1999 TV show, and the reboot. So I'm going to do it in that order, so I hope you guys like it. And like and subscribe as always. So, here are the books. Roswell High, the book series. So these are typical books of their era. Late 90s, early noughties, pre-middle grade and YA boom. They're around 150 pages each. There's about 10 of them, and they're all actually very fun. They are aimed at 11, 12, 13-ish age group, I think. That's just going by what the writer said, but I remember reading those well into my teens and loving them. What's funny is that they were published with different covers, and when the TV show came out, they just had pictures from the TV show on them. The books are not necessarily the most well-written things on the planet. They switch point of view between different characters, but the plots are similar a lot. The first episode of Roswell is the first book, where it takes you on this journey, but it ends in a very different way. So it serves as a base for what was to come, but it's not a complete and utter adaptation. The books are fun, they're easy to read, and overly enjoyable. The characters are a bit shallow, yes, but they were massive, and I remember them in Ottakar's in Waterstone, which is now Waterstones in my hometown. But then it was Ottakar's, and I'm dating myself horribly by admitting that. But these books are great fun, and they're easy reading. The downside to the books is, being of their era, they do struggle with maybe just sort of development. They're very much surface level reading. Even for middle grade books, they are surface level reading. But it sets an interesting mythology, and the mythology of the books is also the thing that really drew me in. The idea of children in pods in the Roswell UFO crash developing for those decades, and then emerging as like 6-year-olds with no memory of how and why, and the mythology of the aliens around it. The books are great in concept, shallow, easy reading, but very fun. So let's move on to the TV show, 1999. Roswell, the 1999 TV show that in the UK was actually shown as Roswell High initially, and then depending on how you watched it, whether it was BBC or Sky, it would have a different name. It was either Roswell or Roswell High. What's slightly funny is that in the UK it was in the Buffy slot. So Buffy used to be on BBC Two at 6:30 after The Simpsons on a Thursday. Roswell was Tuesday. So yes, that's a little bit of trivia for you. So this series changes a few things from the books. It takes elements and the basic mythology and the basic storyline, but goes its own direction. So the characters of Max, Isabel, Michael are the aliens, although we are joined by Tess later on. And the relationship between him and Liz, and these sort of, it's more character driven. The first series is more in sort of a more teenage drama vibe, and then it progressively gets more X-Files as it goes on. And the characters, the interpersonal relationships between these characters is fascinating. The first episode opens with Liz being shot in the crashdown, which is the same as the book, but it very much takes a different turn after that. If you've read the books, you will recognise basic plot elements, but this very much is its own thing. The mythology was slightly different, and certain background characters were a little bit more rounded, and also were actually invented for the sake of the TV show, rather than being just, I think it needed more of a cast, and some characters were completely changed. The mythology is the same. Roswell crash, aliens, so on. But you end up realising there's a lot more aliens on Earth. What's funny about this is that in the show, the special effects have dated, and also some of the music on the DVDs has been changed because of licensing issues, which is a shame, but it happens with TV. I think Roswell stands as this great drama and this great sort of very... I don't know, it's a shame that it almost got cancelled like twice in its initial run. I mean, there were campaigns for the studio to keep it, and they were sending them hot sauce, Tabasco. And also it features a very famous rock. Now, this rock has been in everything, from Power Rangers to Star Trek, and everything in between. And this very famous rock, which you are seeing right now, is definitely just a little in-joke, I think, because it becomes a whole, like, oh, I recognise that place kind of thing. But I think it's a great TV show. I think the writing was really good. And it does have its moments, and the last season was a little rushed, but I get the feeling they were kind of pressed and had to rush forward with it and skip some development. Which I do understand, because, you know, they were told that's it. So at least it did get a proper ending, and it didn't leave on a cliffhanger. It'll be interesting now, as I'm rewatching them and going back. It's one of those shows I've rewatched many, many times in my life, that it's just a great little show. Well acted, and the performances are really good. Of everyone, you know, there isn't a weak link in the cast. What I do want to point out, and I've said this many, many times in my life, that Stephenie Meyer's Twilight borrows very, very, very heavily from Roswell. I don't know how to explain that, but just certain character tropes and certain things feel like she watched Roswell and they resonate with her. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not calling her a plagiarist by any means. I am saying, you know, you have those tropes. The only difference being is that Roswell does them very well and Stephenie Meyer does them very poorly. But Roswell 1999 stands as one of my favourite shows, and it's been great revisiting it. Let's talk about Roswell New Mexico, the 2019 reboot. I always have my misgivings when it comes to reboots of the shows that I love, especially when sometimes they're just not needed. I mean, Charmed is a prime example of a reboot that is just not needed. And in the same way, Roswell isn't needed. I'd love them to just give us a remaster in HD, and just, that would be amazing. I did go in kind of with a clouded judgment, but watching this and just sitting down, you suddenly realise that yes, the same opening sequence is there, Liz gets shot in the crashdown, but this pushes events forward. So in this version of events, they're in their 20s, late 20s. Max is a police officer. There is a gay storyline. They also revert to their original names, and instead of kind of, not whitewash, that's the wrong word, but a very generic sounding last names for the cast, they go back to the book last names, which I find just interesting, full stop. The characters being older, I think, gives them a little bit more development, and you're not tied to the whole high school narrative, and you're not tied to the, well, my parents are here type thing. The characters in this are very different, although, and that's a good thing, that's what I like about it, it's not trying to be Roswell retold, it does its own thing with the source material, and takes elements from both the original series and the books, and uses them in their own way. Roswell, New Mexico, is also quite dark in tone compared to, say, Roswell, the original, but I think that's just to do with the times we're living in. It also isn't scared to open up about politics either, which is a good thing, and it's also not scared to laugh at itself, which I've picked up on. It has its moments of self-awareness, which are hilarious. Roswell, New Mexico, I think, is a reboot that's done well. It's enjoyable, the cast work, the acting is good. Yes, the first couple of episodes are a bit ropey, but that's to be expected, and that's true of most TV shows. It needs to find its voice. I binged watched season 1, and I was genuinely surprised that I liked it as much as I did. I'm looking forward to where it goes in season 2. And also, and I don't mean this in a negative sense, but now in sort of 2019, we have a bit more technology and special effects are easier. So yeah, some ropey CGI won't exist, which is not a bad thing. Like I said, Charmed was a reboot that wasn't needed, because essentially they're just doing the same thing, and it essentially they tried to make a show to replace it, where this doesn't. This sits alongside Roswell, and has its own voice and its own character. I like how they dealt with the aliens, I like how they dealt with the main cast, and I like how it feels. There's more of an emotional connection to the cast and the people involved. It's overall, I would give this the first season like a 7.5 out of 10. I think it needs to find its voice a little more, but overall really good. And if you've not seen it, I'd recommend it. So that's Roswell, New Mexico, the 2019 reboot. So here we go. I recorded all of these in segments and my feelings as I come out of them. It's an interesting format because I wanted to do something that was maybe unedited and just how I felt as I was going, watching and reading. I didn't put as much time into the books in this video just because there isn't a huge amount to say that I've not said before about the books, but I really hope you guys like this. And I know it's a non-bookish video, but you know, I want to do some other stuff every now and then. Tell me what you think in the comments below as always, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.